Hey guys, Zen here, and Operation Steel Wave is the next season here for Rainbow Six Siege, and it's bringing a big new addition to the hard breaching meta with Ace, as well as Melusi, the next 3-speed defender, which hasn't been done since back in year 3. So guys, let's just jump into it. Ace is first up, and yes, he is the new hard breacher for the attacking side, but he is also very lethal with his loadout. He brings the Selma gadget to the field, and this is how it works. You can throw this thing on any soft or reinforced surface, and then using hydraulic pressure, the gadget blows open a large murder hole. A second later, it moves downward and will blow open another large hole, creating a medium-sized opening, and then finally, it'll do this once more, creating an almost wall-sized opening for the attackers to waltz on through. Now, like every other hard breacher, it is very loud and apparent where this gadget is being used, so yes, you can still bandit trick, and there is still that counter, but it works a little bit differently. As bandit, you'll need to be more precise, because electricity only destroys the canister, the main gadget, and not the arms once they've been deployed, and so as a bandit main, you're going to need to pay close attention to the exact placement of the Selma if it's possible. This is where Kaid could be a better fit here to trick, because as we know, the electric claw for my main's gadget has an area of effect and will be easier to guarantee shocking the canister, which at least will stop the sequence of explosions. The last thing I'll note about counters here is Wamai. During the last few seasons, there hasn't always been a super dominant reason to throw his magnets outside. There are a few scenarios where it makes sense, but the hard breaching meta is so core to Rainbow Six Siege that it now gives more reason to consider getting one out there. The Selma are countered by his magnets, and so if Ace is the only option the attackers bring to get into the objective, tossing a magnet outside and getting at least one of the 3 he has access to could be very advantageous to the defenders. But look over at his loadout. It's deadly. Ace comes with the AK-12. You Fuse mains will know this one well. The M1014 shotgun from FBI SWAT and the P9 handgun. Now, for me, at least for primaries, Ace has the strongest weapon of all the hard breachers. The AK-12 has probably been the most slept on assault rifle since the very beginning of the game, and mainly because it's been buried away with Fuse. Now though, it's got NATO sights, so if you always loved the weapon but just couldn't bear the Russian optics, well, now this weapon will have the sights you're more accustomed to. For secondary gadgets, it's almost as good as it gets, with smoke grenades and breach charges, so you have the ability to easily solo with this op with breaches or provide more support with the smoke nades. So before we move on, Thermite, Habana, or Ace? That's been the big question as of recently, and yeah, I'll be going more in depth on this topic in particular, but as of right now, my vote is Ace, and it really comes down to how tough he is to trick properly and the versatility of the Selma. But of course, I'd love to hear your preferred hard breacher and why. On defense, we're introduced to Malusi. She's a 3-speed, 1-armor operator with access to the Banshee Sonic defense system. You place this gadget virtually anywhere within reach, and if an attacker steps into its area of effect, it'll make a loud sound, alerting the defenders and slow down the affected attacker. Now, it is bulletproof, so the attackers will need to either use very important utility like frags or Zofia impacts to deal with it, or risk it all and take it out with a melee. So I've heard, like, where does this gadget fall in terms of defenses? It's not quite Ella or Legion because it isn't concealed very well. In fact, I think the better option is to leave it exposed and in plain sight, and it doesn't work like Echo, who disorients the enemy. The Banshee is anti-rush through and through, and based on her lore, it was actually used to fend off predators from African conservation sites, of course without hurting the animals by being non-lethal. Imagine an Ash rushing down Blue Hall in the basement of Chalet. If you've got either a Goo or a Gersmont down there, yeah, it will go off and alert any defender close by, but you never really know what state of effect the attacker is in. Did they pull out the Goo quickly? Have they fully recovered from the Gersmont effect? Because it's ongoing and doesn't stop until it's been destroyed, you know exactly where that attacker is in relation to the Banshee, and this can set up some absolutely lethal C4 throws. Not only does it give you somewhat of a target because of how apparent the noise is, but it also slows the attacker down, making it tough to get away, so be prepared for a new Banshee C4 meta here. It's super effective in the very early and very late game as a result, and it's another one of those gadgets, kind of like Frost welcome mats, that just has to be dealt with, otherwise it's good night. Now, as we mentioned before, Malusi is our next 3-speed operator in Rainbow Six Siege, somewhat of a dying breed here in the game as the devs have been trying to slow down the meta over the last few seasons, and to be honest, I think she's going to be menacing. She comes equipped with Legion's T5 SMG, which has been one of the most consistent weapons since its release, the Super 90 shotgun, which I think is actually a viable option here because of how easy it is to pick off attackers slowed by the Banshee, and then the Polish sidearm, of course with that red dot sight to just keep things accurate. Altogether, it's powerful. Not Jaeger 416, but in the hands of a 3-speed operator, she can definitely hold her own in the meta. For secondary gadgets, she has impacts and a deployable shield, so really, this is one of those rare operators that can easily be played on a roam or anchored down on site, both with the loadout or the gadget. Jaeger was really the only other 3-speed who filled that roamer support support role and did it so flawlessly, but that's essentially what Melusi is all about. Place your banshees in places where the attackers must deal with them and use that 3 speed to get around the map quickly. The rush meta will be changed forever with the introduction of this operator, and if that has been the goal of the devs for a while, then Melusi is a solid answer. So lore usually isn't the most flashy part of the new operators, but with how their gadgets work this time, it plays a crucial role here. They are both rescuers. For those of you who don't know, Ace is actually the latest member of Nighthaven, Kali's private military group. You can see the logo on his gadget, but he was recruited because of his efficiency at hostage rescue and the fact that he actually saved Kali's life in Somalia. And Malusi is the barrier that protects the African game reserve from poachers. The last thing I'd like to note here is that these two operators are probably the most important duo to make their way to Team Rainbow since Nomad and Kaid, and really it's because since Wind Bastion, there haven't been too many must-play operators. Year 4 did give us Mozzie, but beyond that, the rest haven't been too particular in the meta. Oryx and Iana are much more complex, but it'll be some time before they're fully fleshed out, and I think without a doubt, both Ace and Malusi will be prominent here. They're just incredible. With Malusi, you have that 3 speed, but you don't have to deal with a weapon like Ella's Scorpion or what's complete coin toss of Frost Welcome Mats, and with Ace, hard breaching is going to be more versatile and more lethal than ever before. One counterplay I really like is that now Mozzie has more reason to grab up one of Twitch's drones because he can actually use it to destroy the canister, which takes the guessing game away from at least Bandit. Moving on, we have one of the most anticipated gadgets ever coming in Steel Wave. Like, this thing has had voice lines active in the game since year 2, but the proximity alarm is finally a thing in Rainbow Six Siege. It's a throwable device that attaches to basically any surface and will beep whenever an attacker enters its region. Really, it is that simple. It can be destroyed by any amount of damage, and it also has a light blue glow, kind of like Wamai's magnets, so you'll be able to spot it if it's not placed discreetly. Now, roamers are the ones that I think will benefit from this the most because it helps to watch their back while they're off site. So the operators that'll have access to this new gadget are Kavera, she'll be losing her impacts for the proximity alarm, Wamai losing the barbed wire, Oryx losing the bulletproof camera, Mira, she'll be losing her barbed wire for the proximity alarm, Goyle replacing the impact nades, Rook will be replacing his barbed wire, Castle will be replacing his impacts with the proximity, and Tachanka, who will lose his deployable shield. And then of course the recruit will gain them as a primary gadget. Now this list is interesting because Kavera is losing her impact nades for this thing, and that could hurt her in the long term because impact grenades help the roamers in a big way when they need to escape or make rotations. But on the other hand, the proximity alarm could be exactly what she needs to get that first bit of intel on the location of a pushing attacker, and of course give her the edge and hopefully the interrogation. Other than that, the other operators here aren't losing anything too crucial. Yeah, there is Lord Tachanka, but his rework is on the way and will change everything about him. The alarm is simple, you get 2 of them, it works how you'd expect, and I suppose it comes down to your playstyle, how much you'll see this thing as a part of your whole. Next up, there's going to be a new entry fragger that isn't actually new. She's been here for a while, but now she'll work how she probably always should have. Of course, we're referring to Amaru and her big buff this season. So they finally did away with her standing still once she lands. That was one of her biggest drawbacks, and now once she lands, her weapons ready up almost instantly. Also, when she does choose a window to grapple through, it won't break until Amaru actually flies through it. As a defender, you can still hear which direction she's coming from if you're close enough, but you won't have the exact timing as she's flying through and know when to easily pre-fire her. So it makes her gadget actually usable in that situation. On top of all of this, she doesn't really require a shotgun anymore because her Gata hook actually breaks open hatches automatically. So if you see a hatch, you can simply use the hook to both break it open and fly upwards through it. Out of all the changes coming in season 2, Amaru is receiving the biggest buff here because of all these changes. And I think if you're someone who likes to get into the map early and quickly deal with roamers, she's now your best option. Her loadout is absolutely amazing and always has been, but you no longer need to consider a shotgun. And so that leaves you open to equip both the G8 and the SMG-11, which gives this operator plenty of killing potential. Of course, there is the worry that this is too strong for her, and I've even heard some people saying that this is straight up overpowered, but for me, on site, I still think flying through a window is an early death sentence because again, if a defender is nearby, it is still pretty obvious what's happening. It's off-site or an early entry away from the objective where she's going to shine. The Gata hook still doesn't work indoors, so indoors, she's only as good as her loadout because even when you consider the hatches, breaking it open and climbing up does take a few seconds and makes a bunch of noise, and so she can be easily taken out. Amaru is still all about timing. It's just now that timing is made a little more fair on her part, which I think is necessary because previously she just never had a chance. And then finally here for this video, I wanted to take a look at Rainbow's most culturally accurate trailer yet. Echo's Elite Set is next up, and man, this thing is something special. Roll it. So that'll do it, guys. Operation Steel Wave is the second season here for year 5, and in short, it's going to be an incredible update to Rainbow Six Siege. Void Edge has been a struggle, to say the least, but during the reveal, the game director addresses the latest issues and says the team is hard at work just making a better game. He also says just 4 words that I couldn't agree with more, and I'll leave you with them as we head out here. But of course, I want to hear your thoughts on everything we discussed in this video, and make sure to like and subscribe for more content coming soon. With that, it's been Zen. Thanks for watching. I'm out.